Hello, everyone. We see people already joining us. So hello, everybody. Welcome to this Intro to Selling Boom Cards webinar. We're super excited to be having you and having Danielle Serota presenting with us. So welcome, Danny, if you want to present.
Hi, guys.
Today in this webinar, Danielle will show us how to make and list slide, like the slide process, how to choose your clip art, how to make a boom card, like all the steps that you need to follow, how to create your cover image in PowerPoint and Canva, and how to promote your materials. So these are like all the tips and tricks you need to start selling your boom cards. So we want to remind you that we have the Q&A box and the chat box. So if you have any comments, you can put those on the chat box. And if you have any questions for us or for Danielle, you can let them, you can put those in the Q&A box. After Danielle's presentation, we're going to be asking her some questions and we'll be including some of the Q&A. So let's just go over and turn it over to Danielle Serota.
Hi. So first I'm going to do my presentation and I'm going to share my screen. So this is just a little about me. So my name is Danielle Serota and I'm a speech-language pathologist who works in New York City DOE public school. And I work primarily with 3, 4, and 5-year-old children diagnosed with autism. So for today, we're going to talk about making and listing slides, how I find clip art and how I choose the clip art, how I use Smarty Symbols to make visuals, how I make a boom card. I'm going to show you a visual representation, and how I make my cover image on PowerPoint and Canva. And last, I'm going to just show you a few tips on how to promote your materials. So first, here's making and listing slides. So first, I want to decide what theme I want to make the activity. So I showed this little picture here that has to do with seasons, because obviously a lot of boom cards are made off of seasons, but you also can make a theme about different objects. You could do a theme about household items, or you could pick what you want just any colored background to be. Then I pick the goal that I want to target. So for example, during speech sessions, I would pick probably an object function goal, labeling objects, or you even could do category goals. So this all has to do with what you want to target, specifically with what kids you're working with. Next, I find the clip art to fit the theme. So for example, if I did a winter theme, I'd want to search in Boom and look for winter clip art. And you see there's a lot of different clip art that the Boom store has. And last, I make visuals. So I'm going to show you a video later on how I make visuals on Smarty Symbols. So here's a little video on how I find clip art on the Boom Learning Store. Here. So here I go and I search winter clip art. And if you see, there's a variety of different clip arts that you could choose from. But right now, say I'm looking for my background clip art, because you can make a background clip art and then you also could choose the pictures that you want. So I click on this and then I go to buy now. And in the Boom store, when you click buy now, you get a certain amount of points that you have to purchase. So 600 points is equivalent to about $6. It's probably a little bit more than that, but you purchase a certain number of points prior, and then you use these points to buy your boom cards or clip art. And this is just showing you a different variety of boom cards too. So I really love using animated GIFs, as you could see on my Boom store. This is one of the animated GIFs that I used when I made a winter verb clip art. So you see, these are all moving parts. So I go here, I press buy now, and then I'm good to go. And next, this is a link to clip art in other places. I'm not going to click on this, but this video is going to be saved and you could click on it after. It just has different places that you could buy clip art besides the Boom Learning Store. So now my thoughts when I make a boom. So for example, I want to make a Valentine's Day verb activity. because a lot of my students on my caseload are working on verbs, answering WH questions, and increasing MLU. So the activities I create, I want to try to incorporate as many speech goals as possible. So right here I found this clip art. So you see that these are animated, so they're moving, which is very interactive. And I could ask a variety of WH questions when they're answering and labeling the verbs that are going on here. So first, I'm going to go on Smarty Symbols. Here's a little video on how to use Smarty Symbols. So this subscription to Smarty Symbols is $290 a year, or you could pay per monthly. I think it's just cheaper if you pay per year. And when you go on Smarty Symbols, there's a variety of different sections. So I'm going to show you the activity library, but also in Smarty Symbols, you could just download backgrounds, or you could download just straight clip art if you don't want to actually make the visuals. So it has a variety of different activities in it. So here, when you go to the activity library, I want to make visuals for what I just told you would be a verb activity for Valentine's Day. So here you go to templates and you want to pick what size you want. In here, there's symbols, which you'll go to after if you need to add text. And also there's a community. So if you see maybe you need something, you could type something in the community and somebody maybe already made it for you. So if you go here, I know that I want to make something that says she is and he is. So I'm going to look for something that is 3 rows across. I click the symbol and now I type in she and I drag and I drop it. And I want he and I drag and I drop it. And then I want the word is. So I'm going to look, and then if you scroll, you just drag and drop, and you do the same for both. Now I don't want these colored backgrounds. So I'm going through this and I'm getting rid of the background colors. And now I could go and I could export this as a PDF. And then all you do is you take screenshots of it and then you're good to go. So now I'm going to go into the Boom store after I made the Smarty Symbol. So right now I got my clip art from a marketplace. And then I went to Smarty Symbols and I made my visuals. So that's what I like to do. I like to get everything all set up before I go to the Boom store and to make my boom for everybody to see. You have to get everything together and you kind of need to draw everything out. I usually use a piece of paper and I draw out a whole sketch of what I'm going to do prior to importing it into the Boom store. Because everything you want to do the most quickly and efficiently as possible. So now in the Boom store, if no one's familiar with this, this is your classes. So for here, you could set up a class and you can invite your students. And when you do that, you could actually share activities directly with them. In the library, that's everything you've made or you bought. Your reports is how the kids are doing on those activities you sent home. There's the store if you want to buy something. And then there's the studio, and that's where the magic happens. So this is the studio that we're in right now. So I go to make decks, and I'm going to have new deck. So what I want to do first is that this is the template card. So this is where everything you make goes. And if you do everything here on this template card, then you're actually able to go onto all these cards, which you'll see. So right now, what I want to do first is I probably want to put a background because I don't want to keep this plain white. So I go to background and I know that I already have a background that I like, a pink background. So I type it in and I find it. And now I'm going to drag and drop an image that I want to import. So for right now, I told you I wanted to work on Valentine's Day verbs. So did you see? I think this went by quick. So right here, if I press upload, that's how I upload pictures to the Boom store. And usually if you save the clip art to your desktop or you save it on your computer, it's easy to access. And then you import it and then it's permanently here. So say you need it again in the future, you don't have to re-download it. It all stays here. So once I do that, I now have all these verb options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the making cookies one. So what I do is I download that in. And now you could adjust the size with the arrows. But what went wrong here? I just realized when I was doing this that I didn't do this on the template page. So now it won't go on every other page. So what you do is you delete, and now you always want to make sure that everything is right here. So I just put on the picture. You see, it's so easy if you make any mistakes to just fix it. And then you adjust it. So now you see, because I did it on the template slide, it went on to every other slide. So now I want to add text. So you just take the text box and you drag it in. So I want to write, what is the girl doing? And right here, you could format the size and the font. So also you could import fonts in your Boom store, and they all go right here as well. So you see I have a lot of extra fonts, and that's because I've imported them from other places as well. So now I have this, but what else do I need? I'm thinking to myself, I made those visuals. So now I want to import that visual sentence strip. So here I have it downloaded, and I just put it in. I just drag the picture and drop it and put it in. What is she doing? So what is the girl doing? She is blank. So right now, I'm not going to go into all of this, but you could do the 2 visual choices on the side. If you've seen my Boom cards before, they usually have 2 visual choices here. So this would say making cookies or running. And the child would have to drag and drop the item into this spot. So every Boom card that I make is targeted towards kids who need visual sentence strips, and they need visual choices. So that's how I started it all, because I always needed the choices and the visual sentence strips. So now I press add card, and you see the same girl comes up, but I don't want that. I want a different verb. So I go through my bank of different verbs that I've uploaded, and I see, oh, she's mailing a letter. So you see, it's so simple. Once you make that template card, it's so simple to just change the pictures on the future cards. And that's it. And I would just do the 2 choices here, but I would do it on the template card to make sure that it goes to every single slide. And that's how simple it is to just make a Boom card. So now we're going to go with how to make a cover using PowerPoint. And then after, I'm going to go through how to make a cover using Canva. So I switch off between using Canva and PowerPoint, but Canva is a very useful tool, as is PowerPoint. And these are both going to be Valentine's Day themes, as that's the theme of February. So the first thing that you need to do is you always need to adjust the size and make it 7 by 5. So that's the standard for every Boom card as well. So now I needed to drag and drop and make a border. And now I want to change the color of the border, and I want to make it pink. So you see that? Ooh. And now I'm like, okay, what else do I need? I'm like, okay, I need an overlay. So I have all these different clip arts that I could drag and drop in. I need a desk. I need a laptop. And then I also am going to need an iPad, because if you see my covers, they always have an iPad and they always have a laptop, or they just have one or the other. But I use this clip art. I use 2 different clip arts that I really like, that I'm able to just use multiple times. So if you invest in one of these realistic looking clip arts, they're very helpful for making your covers vibrant. Covers are extremely important, as this is what's eye-catching to all people. So I now have the border, I now have the laptop, and I have the iPad. Now I need to insert a box so that I'm able to type on it and write the name of what my cover is going to be. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to insert a text box. And what I'm going to write on this is Valentine's Day. And say I want this to be centered. I go to the home and I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to change the font. So these are other fonts that I bought and I've uploaded to my PowerPoint. And I want to change the color to make sure that it all matches. So do you see, this took not that long, and I already have the overlays that I need. And I also already have the writing that I need. So Valentine's Day verbs. And I want to maybe just adjust this a little to make this all fit. But what else do I need? I need to add pictures to this. So I always make sure that I first have the pictures saved to my desktop. And now it's so easy to access the pictures. You see I have picture cover 1, and then I'll have picture cover 2. So you always just need to adjust everything. You see this little circle on the top, you're able to turn it and make everything fit. So it's all about adjusting it to your eye, which is very helpful. So it just takes a lot of time to just tweak everything to make sure that it's eye-catching, you're not stretching it out too much, and you're not ruining the display. And then you drag and you drop this too. So you want to fit that all in and you want to make that look great. And usually I'd pick the pictures that you think are the most vibrant. If you think one of the verbs are more vibrant and eye-catching than another, I would pick that one to use in your cover. And then you want to export it as a JPEG. So that's what you always want to do, as a JPEG, because it comes out the clearest. So now here's a video on how to use Canva to make a cover. So the past was PowerPoint, and that was a simple one. This is a little bit more intense, but the difference between the covers is definitely a very big difference. And if I was to give one advice, I'd say that covers are definitely extremely important, as when you're searching the Boom store, you pick the covers that are the most eye-catching to you to click on and to read about and to preview. So for this, you need to make the same thing. You need to do 7 by 5. And then you go to create a new design. So one thing I do here first is that I look for maybe a background. So I'm searching, I'm like, okay, maybe I want a Valentine's Day background. And now I'm like, okay, actually I had a different idea. So what I could do is that I exit out, I could go back, and I could just redo this, create a design, create 7 by 5. It's already set once you do it once. And now I want to maybe do a border, just like I did with the other one. So what I do is that I drag, so you clicked elements. So this is a little bit more difficult. So you click elements, and in elements, you have different shapes that you could do. So it's kind of the same as PowerPoint, as you could drag in a box and then you could make that a border. So you'll see. So I could drag it and make it fit the whole screen. And what I could do next, is I could change the color. So because it's Valentine's Day theme, I think I'm going to want to maybe do a pink color. So that's what I do. I just went here and I changed the color. Then maybe I want to add some hearts to this to make it a little bit more festive. So because you're using Canva, you have the ability to add these elements that you aren't able to use when you're making a PowerPoint. So what I want to do is maybe just add a lot of hearts, make it very vibrant in the background, but it could definitely be distracting if these hearts are too bold. So one great thing that I love using is that I can make this transparency. So I can make this less transparent, so then it fills in with the background and it's just very, very slight. So what I did right there, I'll pause that for a second, is that I went back to elements and I dragged the same box that I used as the background color. I dragged the same box and I'm stretching it out to make it slim and fit across here, because that's what I'm going to want to use to write my words on. So if you see in my past decks, I love to use a long just background and make it a different color than the main background to make it bright. So does this look anything like the decks you've seen of mine? I usually have 1 or 2 lines up here and 1 line down here. So next, I think that these I don't love to keep the same color because they usually target 2 different goals. So I'm going to change this and make this a darker pink. So you see nothing's too different. It all kind of goes. So next, what I do is I go to the text box and I add a heading. So there's a darker heading and then there's a lighter subheading. So I write what my biggest goal is on it. So it's expanding utterances. And next, I could change the font of this. So also Canva has a ton of fonts, and you change the font over here and the size over here and then the color over there. And then I dragged in the text box again and wrote, what do you see? Because that's what I'm working on here. So next, I'm stretching it out and I'm making it even bigger. So it's kind of the same as PowerPoint in that you could stretch it out, you can make it bigger. That's all the same. It's just kind of the features like the hearts. That's very helpful when making cards, because that makes your card also stand out and be different. So now I could do all this and I do the same thing. I drag the text box and I make it bigger and I change the color to say Valentine's Day verbs. So the difference here is that you could upload pictures to Canva. So I've uploaded the laptop and I've uploaded the iPad. So these are already here. So on PowerPoint, you have to search on your computer every time when you need something, but on Canva, it's already all here. So I uploaded the pictures as well that I would need with the laptop and the iPad. So now I'm able to just drag and drop everything, which is very helpful. So you always need to adjust everything. So here I'm just gonna fast forward that. I'm adjusting it and now I dragged in the iPad. And you could just turn it around the same way you do on PowerPoint. And now I have the pictures that I've uploaded over here and I just drag and drop the pictures in and I adjust them to fit into the iPad and the laptop. So now I have the other one that I need. I have this, I just drag it and I adjust it. So it's the same adjustments that you use in PowerPoint. And do you see, this is the end of my cover. This targets every goal that I'm trying to target during my session. And I'm also trying to give them a short synopsis of what we're targeting. That's eye-catching. And also over here, I am adding hearts. So you could just add a few extras on Canvas that it's not so easy to add on PowerPoint. So you see, I'm adding one heart and then another heart, and now this is the end of my cover. So you see, I say expanding utterances, what do you see? Valentine's Day verbs. So this gives to the buyer, they're able to see, okay, maybe I need to focus on expanding utterances. Maybe I want children to answer WH questions. Maybe I want the child to work on Valentine's Day verbs or any verbs. So this gives them everything that they need. And by being bright pink, it definitely stands out for a Valentine's Day theme. So now I'm going to describe how to promote my materials. So promoting your materials is a lot harder than one would think. Promoting your materials, I use a social media account, my Speech-Language account, which I definitely am going to work on doing even more. I made a logo with my name on it. And I think a logo is very important to have a picture of yourself, but also your brand that you're representing. So Speech-Language is on my logo, but also me. And you always need to have bright colors. Another way to promote your materials, which I found extremely helpful from feedback that I've gotten on my Boom store, is make freebie samples. So freebie sample is when you make about 5 slides of a bigger deck and you just sell this for $0. A ton of my freebie samples are every week on the Boom store as like the top sellers. So, and then I see that these also become my top sellers in my Boom store as well, of the full activity, and people comment all the time on them. These have been so helpful for my kids. So it also gives me good feedback on what people do like. Also pinning on Pinterest is extremely helpful, and also to cross promote by posting on other websites. So I also post on Teachers Pay Teachers. And that's my speech logo. Does anyone have any questions?
So we can start with like the questions that we already have. So if you guys have any questions for Danielle, please put those in the Q&A box so we can check them out. But to start, Danielle, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got into education?
Yes. So I'm a 26-year-old living in New York City, and I got my undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland, and I got my master's in speech pathology at Hofstra University. I work in a school in the Bronx, as I said previously, and I love working with pre-K children. And I always knew that I wanted to go into a helping field. I always knew that I loved working with children. And then in undergrad, I decided to shadow a speech-language pathologist, and I instantly knew that this was the field for me, and I loved it.
That's so cute. Yeah, I'm actually a special education teacher, and I'm studying school psychologist. And I want to focus also on preschool autism students. So I love that. So how did you start making and selling boom cards?
I started making boom cards during spring 2020. It was quarantine, and I had my pre-K students remote, and they were running all over the place, and I was looking for a variety of different activities for them. And I stumbled upon boom cards, and I realized at the time, wow, these are so great. They could be used, like the parents could use them at home as well. This is so great. This could also facilitate carryover, especially during quarantine. However, I realized there was such a lack of materials for pre-K students, and especially pre-K students with autism who needed visual sensing strips. They needed visual choices. And at this time, I started creating the activities, and I saw how motivating they were for my students, and the parents said how well that they did at home with them as well. So then I just kept going, and I kept making more, and now I have a whole store.
Yeah, that's amazing. And they love like the sounds that the boom cards.
Yeah. And they love that they could drag their finger. It's very engaging for them. They actually prefer it a lot of times over the old-fashioned Velcro, which is still great to have too, but the Velcro where you take off and they put on, because it's on the iPad, and all kids love an iPad.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, do you have any tips for remote learning, like teaching remotely?
Yes. For what age?
Whatever age, for
So
example.
for remote learning, you have to always find out what motivates the student. So like there is no quick fix to all students, because some students, I had a student who they love the Pink Panther. So I had to find a million different activities related to the Pink Panther. I think videos and like animated shorts are extremely helpful too for different kids, because these could be stopped and they could ask a ton of questions too. But for pre-K students, it would be all songs. Songs are amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
They love Coco Melon.
Yeah. And right now for boom cards, you can add sound. So if you like, like singing or saying like instructions to students,
So it's very helpful to use a song paired with a boom card. So if you did the Wheels on the Bus, you also could have them do the boom card activity paired with the song.
Exactly.
And that was extremely helpful during quarantine as well.
Yeah,
and in person, it's really good too, because you could play the song and then you could have the boom card up. So you could do both.
Yeah, and you can pair that with other activities, just like you mentioned.
I always pair boom cards with hands-on activities too in person.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what tricks have you learned about making decks since you first started selling boom cards?
So I've learned a lot of tricks. I've learned that your store definitely needs to have a look to it, that when somebody sees your stuff, they need to know that this is you. You can't be having a million different styles. You need to have a style. And honestly, your style just like comes to you and you don't even know how you got the style you got. Yeah. I don't know how I even started with the style I have. But if you see like my first decks that I've ever created, they are a different style than I am now. So your style takes some time to get. And what you think is so good in the beginning, your covers, you'll go back and be like, wow, this is not a good cover. Yeah. You need to have vibrant colors in your cover. You also need to pick fonts that are extremely clear, because when a reader goes through the store or a buyer and they can't read what your cover says, they're just going to automatically go right by it. So not always the fanciest fonts, but more the clearer fonts. Mm-hmm. And you want your covers to not have so much on it, but you also want to make sure that you target what you are working on in the deck. And you want to make sure that when somebody sees your deck, they remember it and they remember what to type in to find it again. And another thing that I've learned is when you look in the marketplace, you need to see if there's already stuff that's already made that you're thinking of making. So if you think of an idea and you search the marketplace, say if you give a mouse a cookie and you look in the marketplace and you see a million things made, maybe you could make a different activity that's not made. So if you wanted to maybe do an expanding utterances, if nobody did that with if you give a mouse a cookie, or if you see there's so many activities, maybe you should not do that and waste your time. Maybe you should do an activity that there is a lack of. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard at first to find your niche, but once you see how your sales go, it's a lot easier to realize where your niche lies.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what the next thing is, that you should always focus on your sales, because what sells for me may not sell for somebody else, because it's how you format it, it's how you do it. And your descriptions should never be too long. Your cover should be straight to the point. Your title should be straight to the point, and your description should be straight to the point. And just always tell exactly what you're trying to teach.
Yeah. And on that note, it is super important to also keep in mind that your cover and your title, like the students can see those. So that's also very important to keep in mind. Like you mentioned, the font to be clear for teacher, but as well for students, because they are seeing that. So that is super important. So thank you. What is your most popular deck or bundle that you have so far?
My expanding utterances and WH questions with qualitative basic concepts. So this is a bundle, but the pieces of the bundle doesn't sell as well as the big bundle itself. But it sells, but it's consistent. So I published this about a year ago, and it was my bestseller last month. And so far for this day of the month, it is my bestseller, because this is something that all teachers teach all the time. So themes go in and out. If you do a season, it only stays for that season. But if you target more goals, such as basic concepts, categories, object function, this is going to sell over and over and over again, because people need this all time of the year, depending on their kids' level. So that has been consistently selling a huge amount.
Yeah, and that's also super important that to keep in mind, you can create decks about your curriculum, because other teachers and educators are using the same and teaching the same. So yeah.
And also this bundle that was created was made exactly off of an idea that I had during my session. And I was like, oh, I need a second part of this. So it was like identifying them, the basic concepts, and then saying what, like the snowflake is blank, or the fireplace is blank, and they have to fill in hot or cold. And that's what I needed when I was working with my student. So the best sellers for me are when I think of the idea during the speech session and I have to write it down to myself so I don't forget it.
Yeah, and you already know that students like that. So it's like,
yes.
Okay, it's good to go. Yeah. So can you describe, I know you've mentioned a lot, but can you describe the promo materials and assets that you need for every day deck you publish? For example, the cover image that you mentioned that needs to be eye-catching, keywords, etc.
So the thumbnail that I make, I always use very clear fonts that I've said in the past. So I've downloaded and I bought a few fonts from different people that sell them, and they were definitely a great investment, because these are things that you use on every single cover. I also use Canva, or I use PowerPoint to make my covers. And I buy clip art from different resources. And I think that when you're picking clip art, when you're scrolling through and you see a clip art come out at you, and then you see a different one come out at you, you should always go with the first one, because I always regret it if I go with the second choice. Whatever catches your eye is going to catch everybody else's eye.
Yeah.
And I use Smarty Symbols, which is the best investment if you have kids with very low language abilities, because they always need these visuals. So instead of having visual strips out in person, if you're in person on the table, these are already in my decks. So that's what I love, because during a session, you're trying to get the students to pay attention and sit, and you want to have the least amount of materials out as you have the boom cards, because you don't want any student to get distracted. So when you have these already on the screen, it's very helpful for them to just drag and drop items into it, instead of having to look down at the visual in front of them and then form the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. And they are similar on the ones that they already use, like their communicators. So it is good. Smarty Symbols, they are great. So for the deck preview that you also mentioned, do you have a strategy for making your preview engaging? You know, the person that is going to purchase that deck only gets 4 cards. So
yeah.
What do you do?
So for those 4 cards, my decks are the same, no matter if it's the first 4 slides or it's the last 4 slides, everything is very consistent in it. But say I have a WH question one, and it's who, what, where, and then they form the sentence strip. I make sure that they have who, what, where, and the sentence strip for forming the sentence, so that in that deck preview, they could see the full activity. Also, if I'm doing a pronoun one, I'd make sure that the first three are he, she, and they. So everybody could see how there is a he, that there is a she, and there is a they. But you need to make sure that you put these in the first 4 slides, because otherwise no one will be able to see it. And if you do the least engaging one, say you have different GIFs and you put the least engaging GIF, somebody may click on it and view it and be like, no, this isn't that engaging. I don't like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you mentioned before, that it needs to be eye-catching, including the first 4 cards.
Yeah.
So,
But you never want to create something that isn't accurate. So you don't want to make the first 4 amazing and then the rest not amazing, because then that will be very upset buyers.
yeah, exactly. So, and can you describe like how do you split your time between creating, publishing, and promoting your decks?
Yes. So usually I think of the idea, which is part of the creating, and I sketch it out. And after I sketch it out, I need to go and look for clip art, as I've discussed previously, and then go on Boom and try to create the whole activity. So that's obviously the most time consuming. In the very beginning, when I started, what took very long was the covers, because at first you have to see what works. You keep republishing, you keep trying to see it, you keep trying to see what fonts are the most clear, what fonts aren't the most clear. So then once you figure this out, the covers are a lot easier once you get how you're going to create everything. But obviously every time I go through different colors on what I think is more eye-catching. And when you pick the pictures of your Boom deck that you want to put on your cover, make sure these are the strongest pictures and they're the most colorful pictures, obviously. But once I do one cover or I do one activity within, say, a bathroom items deck, when I do the description I do the cover, these will all look basically the same, just in the description will have a few different words. So say I do I see, I want, I like. These descriptions are going to have the same description, just with the different wording, just see, like, or want, and it has to do requesting or commenting, whatever it is. So those descriptions are easy to change, and the same with the covers. So the most time is definitely creating. And then promoting is, you could do social media, you could pin on Pinterest, but this is definitely the least time consuming.
Yeah. Okay, so and what resources do you use to stay on top of trends and opportunities? I know you mentioned that you look on the search, like if someone else have already made that, you know, like kind of change them. So what resources do you use to like stay on top?
So I definitely want to make things that my kids are working on, obviously, but I do follow a bunch of speech-language pathologists on Instagram, and they regularly post about different strategies that they use during their speech sessions and that are the most effective. And I subscribe to their email thread, so I get those. But most importantly is that I read evidence-based practice to educate myself on the most effective strategies to target the goals that I'm targeting. So if I am working on a specific goal, I want to always find the most productive and efficient strategy, or else it wouldn't be helpful for the students, because that's the end goal, is to help the students improve their speech and language skills.
Is there anything else that you provide to customers to make sure that your decks are a hit in?
I give different strategies. In my description, I say, oh, another goal that could be targeted is pronouns. By asking he, she, you could have out visual choices. I also say, oh, you could ask other WH questions about object functions if you want during a verb deck. So I give different activity ideas there, but for giving them anything to print, I do it all on the screen. I do the visual sentence strips, I do the visual choices, but it's very helpful if you can give those printouts as well.
And I know you mentioned follows. So do you have any fellow publishers that you follow for inspiration?
You broke up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
do you have some fellow publishers that you follow for inspiration? I know you mentioned that you follow some people, so can you mention some that you take inspiration from?
Yeah, I follow the Type B SLP. I follow Speech Room News. I follow the Speech Tea. I follow a bunch. I could send a whole list, but it's very, very helpful because honestly, the speech Instagrams are where you find the most information.
Yeah,
it's very helpful to see also different ideas from what other people are doing, even during their speech sessions, even in person, on where to buy different toys that the kids love as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I love all those publishers. They're amazing as well as you. And so let's go over and answer some of the questions from the Q&A box. And we have, can you share where you get other clip art other than in the Boom store? Like you mentioned, Smarty Symbols. They want to know like other
websites.
Yeah.
Yes. So I also go on Teachers Pay Teachers. And then you also could go on Adobe. You could download Adobe. You have to pay for it. It's Adobe DC, and you could also get clip art from there. I love clip art GIFs from ByAb. You could find them on Teachers Pay Teachers. They're animated GIFs that target a variety of verbs that other GIFs don't have.
That is so good. And we also have Melissa asking, do you create boom cards students can use with AAC? I know you mentioned that you can add those symbols. So yeah.
So I don't do ones that you could specifically use with AAC, but they do target core words like see, like, want, so that they could practice these. And if you want, and if you just need to work on that goal to basically give them auditory bombardment of the goal, they are very helpful.
And also like maybe a tip, because you can change the background of your sound on boom cards. You can actually add the sound like saying I, and then changing the background to like the symbol that says I, and it will be like kind of the same as the AAC. So that is like a tip.
So that's very helpful.
Yeah, and so we have Susan asking, where do you get your songs? Do you add sound to your boom cards? So it's gonna.
My songs? I don't have any songs in my boom cards.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was just because you mentioned that you pair your like.
Oh, I go on YouTube and I just play Wheels on the Bus, Old MacDonald, a variety of different songs. If you're happy and you know it, they all love.
And so how about writing titles? Like, what do you do?
For writing titles, you want to keep it very short and concise, but you want to target what you are teaching. So if I am teaching verbs and I'm doing verb sentences, you should maybe write, I wrote for one of mine, snowman verb sentences, because these are winter, but it was a snowman verb sentences. So you want to keep them very short and concise, but also you want to tell them what you're targeting. And then in your cover, you could write more words. So you could write expanding utterances and WH questions, snowman verbs, because this catches their eye, but when it filters, when they're searching, the shorter titles go to the top. So it's very important also for yourself. If you go to the top and you type in the store verbs and see what comes up, winter verbs, you see how you rate. So if you're very low down, that means that maybe you're writing too many keywords, maybe your titles are too long, and also the order of the description matters. And the order of the keywords matter. So your first keyword is the strongest, but if you write 20 keywords, they're less strong. So you need less keywords and shorter titles. You have to pick very specifically what you want to target the most and what's the most important to your boom card.
Exactly. And just think about what you will type if you're looking for that tag. So that is also super important. Thank you. We have Judith asking, can you share more about crediting sources used within your decks? What are the rules around crediting sources?
So you need to credit every single clip art that you get. You cannot get clip art off Google. you have to get clip art from credited sources. So either use Boom Cards, I would use Teachers Pay Teachers, or I'd find any others that are helpful. There's a few other websites where you get real photos from, but I'd be very careful. I would usually stick between Teachers Pay Teachers and Boom Cards, because that, you know, you're good to go. And what you do is you want to copy and paste the link of that person's store. So say I use Buy Ab, I want to go to her store and copy the link and then paste it in acknowledgements on the bottom. And if you use any fonts, you need to make sure that you cite those as well in the acknowledgements, because somebody could red flag you. So that's very important.
Yeah, exactly. So everything you do, like everything you use on your Boom Cards that you didn't create it, you need to have a license and permission to use that, and you need to acknowledge that, just like Danielle mentioned. And each author, like on Boom and Teachers Pay Teacher, have their own rules. So that is also super important to keep in mind, to just read
You
those.
need to always read the rules, because sometimes you have to pay them to put them on Boom as well. Or sometimes you get like you only get a minimum production. So if you use it a certain amount, then you have to pay, you have to read all the fine lines.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all different. So
They,
just,
yep. Just make sure you read.
Exactly. So she also asked, when you create, oh, sorry, they keep moving. When you create a preview of deck, are you limited to using only the first 4 slides or the last 4 slides? Can you create a set that is different than the progression in the actual deck?
So for the question, are you asking if I could pick the 4 cards that I want in the preview? So it has to be the first 4 on top. So it has to be the first 4 that are the first 4 pages of your document. That's in the preview. But if you wanted to make a freebie sample, which I spoke about, it's a great way to help promote your ideas and your cards, then you could pick any 5 slides that you want. But also the first 4 of this sample will be in the preview, but everybody will probably download it because it's free. So nobody really cares about the deck preview.
It's free, so just add it to
usually things that are free, everyone just says, okay, download.
Yeah, exactly.
But you want to make sure these are the best 5 cards. Or you could do 6, you could do 7. I mean, some of my freebies have 10. It depends how long your deck is. So if I have 100 pages in one of my decks, I can make the freebie 10. The max cards you could have is 100. The max cards you could have per deck is 100. It maxes you out.
Yeah, exactly. Have you get to 100 cards on a deck?
Yes, I have, and I've been told that I need to get rid of some.
Yeah, so those are pretty amazing decks, I imagine. So yeah, you can I saw somewhere that someone were asking for a list, so I don't know if it was for clip arts or publishers or some of your decks. We have already shared your link to your store, so everyone, you can go ahead and check Danielle's store, that it is amazing. We have one more question in the Q&A box from Jackson, and it says, where do I go to find word reshapes in Boom?
So where do you go to find them?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the question, Jackson. I don't know if you want to clear that up. But yeah, that's the question. Where do I go to find word reshapes in Boom?
I'm not sure what reshapes means.
Same.
It might be relationships.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was like, maybe it's something like an SOP term. So
It might be
I
a
was
typo.
confused. So where you go to find word relationships?
Oh, yeah, probably.
So you could type this in the Boom store if you want that. You could type in word associations if that's what you're referring to too. But you also, if you type in keywords, so say you type in associations, you could see what comes up. You could type in words even and see what comes up. So in the Boom store, you just need to try a few words to see what comes up, because every single word, even if you capitalize a word, it comes up with a different bank of findings. So that's why it's so tricky, because if you capitalize something, it may hurt you or it may benefit you. So that's why you need to search every time you publish something to see where it goes in the Boom store. If it goes to the way top, you're doing great. If it takes pages and pages for you to find your own activity, that means that that maybe you did too many words, or maybe your description was too long. So that's how they rank stuff.
Perfect. So those were all the questions that we received on the Q&A box. So thank you very much, Danielle. This was amazing.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you all who attend this webinar. On the chat, we're receiving a couple of comments. Thank you, Danny. So we'll be sending you the link for our survey, a feedback survey link. So please fill that up. If you love this webinar, we would love to see your feedback. And we'll be sending a recording on a follow-up email, and you'll also find the recording on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. So thank you everyone who joined us. Make sure to join us on our future webinars. So Carrie, Lisa, do you have your hand raised?
We just had one more question in the Q&A box, if you could answer it.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, after I create cards, how do I sell them? On my own page or on the Boom site or elsewhere?
So if you want to sell them, you need to buy a subscription to sell them. So if you don't have the publisher, if you don't have the highest thing, which is like $35 a month, $35 for the year, then you're unable to publish. So you have to pay. And if you want to publish in other marketplaces, you still have to pay. And then you go into another section and you could check off like sell in other marketplaces, and it gives you a link. But in order to even publish a Boom card, you have to pay the fee, it's a great price. It's for the whole year.
Yeah, and you need to pay because that gives you the license, the seller's license. So that's the important thing. So thank you very much. I think those were all the questions. Yeah, we send the link. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone that is here with us. Thank you again, Danielle. It was
Thank you.
So make sure to stay tuned and join us in our future webinars. We have one for each Wednesday of February. It is our selling series. So if you want to learn more about how to sell Boom cards, please check them out and join us. And so have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone again for coming.
Bye-bye.